Hello and welcome to another live stream from Emerald Hills Skies. My name's Doug, and we do electronically assisted astronomy at Emerald Hills Skies, EAA. It's basically the concept of replacing the eyepiece with a camera. The advantage of that, among many others, is that we can share those with you real time. But right now we're looking at our planetarium software, which is called Starry Night Pro. We've got all the constellations lit up. But we want to focus on one constellation in particular, and that is Orion. You can see it there in the night sky in the deep southwest. And in fact, it's now headed toward the horizon. And it won't be long that Orion will be sneaking past the edge of that horizon. It's about 3 a.m. in the morning, but I haven't been able to stop. There's so many great things to look at here, in spite of the fact that the moon is at 86% tonight. So it's just illuminating everything. If you walk outside, it's just like, in a way, it's like the dawn or the early morning sky because there's so much moonlight. But in spite of that, with EAA, you can stack frames and see things that otherwise would be impossible to see. Now, I had thought that in this week before Christmas, we ought to concentrate on something that we should be able to enjoy. And I thought about clusters, and we'd make it kind of Christmas clusters. And sure enough, I think here in Orion, we ought to try to zero in on the clusters of Orion's sword. And there are some great ones. Now, most of the time, people get carried away with all these nebulae, and they are beautiful. But we forget that some of the reasons that the nebulae are so beautiful are that these clusters are doing such a great job lighting them up. Look at NGC 1981 here, an often ignored cluster that's at the top of the sword. This cluster, we're going to show you in a second. If you turn your head upside down and pretend like this is the bottom of the letter, and these are the two wings, you can see that it makes the letter Y. And the letter Y opens up as if to say, wow, look at what I'm going to show you. So it's the letter Y. That's NGC 1981. It's a cluster there on top, an open cluster. It's a beautiful open cluster in and of itself. But then it points at NGC 1975, which is the cluster that's backlighting this whole cloud here, which ends up being very beautiful in and of itself. This cloud, I guess, is being partly lit up by NGC 1977 here as well. Let's see if we can select NGC 1977. Yeah, that's backlighting the cloud. But the entire group of clusters are all illuminating this M42 and M43. Let's see if we can select M43 here, which is this diffuse nebula at the top. And then M42 here will make Starry Night Pro show us that, even though it's being overwhelmed by lots of other open clusters. We're getting down closer to NGC 1976 and the cluster that's commonly called the trapezium. And the trapezium is usually so bright that it's blowing out. Let me get rid of those names now that I've been selecting. Look at the trapezium here. It's typically completely blown out because of all the brightness of those stars adding together. And these are all open clusters that are highlighting these hydrogen clouds. And then you get down here to NGC 1980, of which this incredibly bright star, what's it called? Nair al-Saif. It's actually a double star. And it in and of itself is so bright that it's hard to concentrate on anything else that's happening in this area. This is a beautiful spot, and you get clear down here at the end, and this is another open cluster here, NGC 1980. Again, we focus on these nebulae so much, we forget that the open clusters are really what is lighting them up. And these end up being like star nurseries, and new stars are being birthed among all these clouds and gases, thanks to the power of these stars, we can see them so clearly. And look how much space they take up in our RASA 11 frame. We're using a RASA telescope. You can see it down here, perhaps in the lower right. The RASA 11 is famous for the fact that it has a wide field, and boy, we need it to be able to see all these clusters. Now, here's the really fun part. So far, we've been looking at this in our planetarium software, which lets you see all these labels and names. But now we're going to switch to a real-time view through that telescope that you see right there, the RASA 11, with the aid of the ZWO ASI 2600 MC Pro camera, which is an APS-C camera, high res, and it's able to send you real-time images. So let's go there right now to SharpCap, where these images have been combining for about 21 minutes. All right, so the camera has disconnected while I was in the other part of the sky. Fortunately, it did save a beautiful frame of it. So let's look and see what it saved. All right, so well, that's the problem with live TV. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will clear this stack and start over. We're going to clear the stack and start over. Actually, the camera has become, we've lost touch with the camera. So let's see, first of all, if we can get it back. I got so carried away with all those open clusters that let's set it on 20 seconds and maybe a gain of about 100. And then let's start the live stack and clear it. And I almost like this better. I know this is weird that I would say this, but I almost like this better because now you're going to see the instant that this RASA images one single 20-second frame. And I almost like it that you can admire what this telescope and camera can do with just 20 seconds of time. Now, I know that astrophotographers will pile upon stacks of pictures that are sometimes like 16 hours deep on these objects. But what I love about this little happenstance that we have here on live TV is that you get to see for instance, the frame that we're about to add here, the third frame, is going to give you an idea of what 60 seconds can do. So let's get our bearings again. Here is NGC 1981. And remember, we have to turn our head on side to be able to see this Y that opens up. And then here you can get that 75, 77, and get over here into the 1980. I think this is NGC 1981 and this is NGC 1980 underneath here, and this star, what was it called? Al Saif something, and it's backlighting this stellar nursery where new stars are being born, made up of all these gases. And in here is that trapezium cluster. These are beautiful clusters to bring to you the week before Christmas. So we kind of call it the clusters of Orion's sword. And if we back off in this in our planetarium software, Starry Night Pro, you can see, oh, I see why the mount has lost connection. If we back off here of this sword, you can see that we're basically in the Sword of Orion, and you can find these with these 3 belt stars. This amazing section here, the Sword of Orion, from NGC 1981 through NGC 1975, NGC 1977, and behind this, the trapezium, and here NGC 1980, it's just one series of open clusters that make it possible for us to enjoy all these beautiful, beautiful nebula clouds that you can see here. And look how the blues and the reds light up, and we're not really having to change the live stack much. even though the mount has stopped responding, you can still see the beauty of this picture. So we'll capture a picture exactly a scene so that we can remember this. And I hope that you'll stop back by for other nights that we live stream real-time images from the Emerald Hills skies. And if you like this kind of content, would you please subscribe and give it a thumbs up? And would you maybe put into the comments what you think of these clusters and the way they're revealing to us all these nebulae? Thanks for being a part of this, and thanks for joining us. Even though on live TV you can sometimes not, it's hard telling what'll happen, I hope you've still been able to get an idea of what God is doing through all these images. Thanks for being a part of this, and we'll see you again at Emerald Hills Skies. Good night. God bless.